What if everything you've been told about leadership, relationships, and success is a carefully constructed lie? What if the self-help gurus, the motivational posters, and the feel-good Instagram quotes about leading with love are actually the exact reason most people fail? Over 500 years ago, a man named Niccolò Machiavelli cracked the code of human nature wide open. And what he discovered was so disturbing, so ruthlessly honest, that the world tried to bury him for it. His name became a synonym for evil. His ideas became taboo. But here's the thing that should keep you up at night. Every empire that ever stood, every fortune that was ever built, every leader who ever held real, lasting power, they all played by his rules. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why choosing love over fear isn't noble, it's naive. Welcome to Machiavelli's Matrix, the matrix you didn't know you were in. Think about this for a second. You've been programmed since childhood. Be kind, be generous, be the bigger person, turn the other cheek. Love conquers all. Sounds beautiful, right? Now ask yourself one honest question. How's that working out? Because while you were busy being the nice guy, someone else got the promotion. While you were trying to be fair, someone else closed the deal. While you were leading with love, someone else was commanding fear and winning everything you wanted. This isn't cynicism. This is the Matrix, a system of beliefs designed to keep you compliant while the real players operate by a completely different rule book. And the man who first ripped this comforting illusion apart was Niccolò Machiavelli, a 16th century Italian diplomat who watched governments rise and collapse from the inside. He wasn't some armchair philosopher. He was in the room where it happened, advising rulers, negotiating with kings, watching alliances shatter overnight. And then he got fired, accused of conspiracy, tortured, exiled. So what did he do? He sat down in his small farmhouse outside Florence and wrote one of the most dangerous books in human history, The Prince, a manual so threatening that the Catholic Church banned it. And the most famous line from that book, "It is better to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both." But here's what most people get dead wrong. They stop at that quote. They slap it on a t-shirt and think they understand Machiavelli. They never read the full chapter. And they miss the entire system operating beneath the surface, Machiavelli's Matrix. So let me walk you through it, piece by piece, and I promise, by the end of this, you'll never look at power the same way again. Machiavelli's dark view of human nature. Here's the uncomfortable truth Machiavelli understood that most of us refuse to accept. People are not good by default. He wrote, and I'm paraphrasing, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and greedy. As long as you succeed, they are yours entirely. They will offer you their blood, their property, their lives, and their children when the need is distant. But the very moment danger arrives, they turn against you." Machiavelli watched Cesare Borgia, one of the most feared rulers in Renaissance Italy, conquer entire regions, not through kindness, but through strategy and calculated intimidation. Borgia was the son of Pope Alexander VI, born into privilege but hungry for power on his own terms. After Borgia conquered the lawless Romagna region, he needed to bring order to chaos. So he installed a ruthless enforcer named Ramiro de Orco to clean things up through fear and discipline. The minister did the job, viciously, and then Borgia had de Orco's body cut in half and displayed in the public square of Cesena on Christmas morning, with a bloody knife and a wooden block beside it. Now hold that thought, because what happened next to Cesare Borgia is the part nobody talks about, and it changes everything. Why love is a losing strategy. Let's get honest. We all want to be loved. It feels good, it's warm, it's safe. Every fiber of your being wants approval, affection, admiration. But Machiavelli saw something every powerful leader eventually discovers the hard way. Love is conditional, always. Your employees love you when the paychecks are flowing. Your friends love you when you're picking up the tab. Your followers love you when you're winning. But the second you stumble, the second things get uncomfortable, that love evaporates like morning fog on a highway. Machiavelli put it bluntly: a prince who bases his power entirely on the people's goodwill finds himself ruined, because friendships that are won by payment and not by greatness of soul may indeed be earned, but they cannot be kept. Julius Caesar was one of the most beloved leaders in ancient Rome, loved by the common people, adored by his soldiers, and where did all that love get him? Stabbed 23 times on the Senate floor by the very men who called him brother and friend. Love didn't save Caesar, fear might have. Now compare that to Steve Jobs. Was Jobs loved? By some, sure. But feared? Absolutely. There are documented accounts of Apple employees needing professional counseling after working under him. People described his verbal attacks as psychologically devastating. One former executive said working for Jobs was like being in an abusive relationship you couldn't leave because the work was too compelling. And yet, Apple became the most valuable company on the planet. Under his fear-driven leadership, Apple went from 90 days away from bankruptcy to a $3 trillion empire. That's not a coincidence. That's Machiavelli's matrix in full operation. The fear formula, how it actually works. Now, before you go full dictator on your co-workers tomorrow, let me be clear. Machiavelli was not saying be cruel for cruelty's sake. That's the catastrophic mistake most people make. He specifically warned a prince should make himself feared in such a way that, if he is not loved, at least he escapes being hated. A CEO who sets impossibly high standards and holds every person accountable, feared but respected. A CEO who screams at employees, takes credit for their work, and threatens their livelihood for amusement, hated and eventually overthrown. People feared the system Bezos built, but they didn't hate him because the system also rewarded excellence. Top performers were compensated generously. Innovation was celebrated. That's the formula. Fear plus fairness. Accountability plus opportunity. That's Machiavelli's actual message, the part that gets buried when people just quote the headline. The Borgia paradox, when fear isn't enough. Now here's where the narrative twists on itself. Remember Cesare Borgia, the man Machiavelli held up as the model prince, the architect of fear. He lost absolutely everything. When Borgia's father, Pope Alexander VI, died unexpectedly in 1503, the entire power structure crumbled overnight. Cesare himself was gravely ill, unable to act during the most critical moment of his life. His enemies closed in. His allies abandoned ship without a second glance. The fearsome prince who had conquered half of Italy died in obscurity during a minor siege in Spain at just 31 years old. Machiavelli acknowledged this. He wrote that Borgia did everything right, except he couldn't account for fortune. He called fortune a raging river that destroys everything in its path. You can build levees, you can dig channels, but sometimes the flood comes anyway. This is the paradox at the heart of Machiavelli's matrix. Fear is the more reliable tool, but it's not invincible. What Machiavelli really advocated was adaptability. The ideal prince doesn't rigidly choose love or fear. He masters both and deploys whichever the moment demands. But here's the kicker. If you absolutely must choose, if circumstances force your hand and you can only pick one, Machiavelli says, take fear, every time, because love depends on them and their fickle emotions. Fear depends on you. Modern Machiavelli, the matrix all around you. Look around. Machiavelli's matrix isn't some dusty theory trapped in a Renaissance library. It's operating right now, in your office, in your industry, in the economy. A 2023 workplace survey found that 1/3 of corporate managers in America lead primarily through fear. Here's the twist. 90% of those fear-based leaders admitted they saw declining productivity. Nearly 60% acknowledged their employees were unhappy. Companies with engaged employees see 23% higher profitability and 43% lower turnover compared to those relying on fear alone. So raw fear has a massive cost. The smartest modern players understand this. They engineer systems that balance fear with reward, pressure with purpose. Take Elon Musk. The man has fired people publicly on social media. He demands 80-plus-hour weeks and sleeps on factory floors. Is he feared? Absolutely. But Musk also offers something pure tyrants can't, a vision so intoxicating that talented people voluntarily walk into the fire. Working for Musk isn't just stressful, it's a chance to send humanity to Mars, merge brains with computers, and revolutionize energy forever. That's the modern matrix. You create fear to maintain elite standards. Then you offer a vision so powerful that the fear feels like a worthy price of admission. Robert Greene, author of The 48 Laws of Power, a book so influenced by Machiavelli that the New Yorker called Greene hip-hop's Machiavelli, captures it perfectly. Power isn't about dominance. It's about understanding the game so well that others move in directions that serve your interests without even realizing it. Putin, the dark side of the matrix. And then there's the cautionary tale. Vladimir Putin has been described as perhaps the most Machiavellian leader of the 21st century. He enters negotiations knowing what the other side fears most. He offers gifts so generous that the receiver feels grateful and trapped. When criticism rises, he redirects public anger toward an external enemy, straight from the prince. Classic Machiavelli. But Putin crosses the line Machiavelli specifically warned against: the imprisonment of opponents, the mysterious deaths of critics, the seizure of property and liberty. That's not fear. That's the breeding ground for hatred. And Machiavelli was crystal clear. Hatred is a death sentence for any ruler. It may not come today, it may not come tomorrow, but it always arrives. Because when people have nothing left to lose, when you've stripped their property, dignity, and hope, fear stops working. What replaces it is the most dangerous force in history: pure desperation. That's when empires crack. The real lesson, why this matters to you. So what's the real takeaway? Is Machiavelli telling you to become a heartless monster? Not even close. Here's what Machiavelli's matrix actually teaches. Second, fear is not cruelty. There's a massive difference between commanding respect through high standards and terrorizing people for sport. The best leaders, from Augustus to Lincoln to Jobs, understood that consequences create order, and order creates progress. Third, never be hated. Fear keeps people in line. Hatred puts them on a mission to destroy you. The moment you cross from feared to hated, the countdown begins. Fourth, master both tools. The greatest leaders aren't those who chose love or fear. They're the ones who knew when to deploy each. Compassion when loyalty needs building. Fear when discipline needs enforcing. Flexibility is the ultimate weapon. And fifth, fortune is undefeated. You can execute perfectly and still lose. Machiavelli knew this. Borgia learned it the hardest way possible. Play the game wisely, but play knowing the river can flood at any time. CTA. Now here's the question I want you to sit with. If Machiavelli himself walked into your life today, looked at your job, your relationships, your ambitions, would he say you're playing the game? Or would he say the game is playing you? Because the matrix is always running. Every boardroom, every negotiation, every interaction. The only question is whether you can see it. If this video cracked something open in your mind about power, leadership, and the rules nobody teaches in school, smash that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me, are you team love or team fear? I genuinely want to hear your take. Share this with someone who needs to wake up to how the world really works. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because every week we break down the hidden frameworks that run the world. Don't choose love over fear. Choose awareness over ignorance. I'll see you in the next one.